guys, I am SRI Gano Grills for Galighticus.com, and today I wanted to produce somewhat of an editorial on the recent massacre that happened in Orlando, Florida. Horrible, horrible event where 49 people lost their lives and other people were injured by the hands of someone who was very, very conflicted. So I wanted to take a look at that. It's at a gay nightclub, and there have always been different viewpoints about the community of gays and lesbians. It has caused a lot of different conversations. It has also produced and attracted to itself hate crimes, which really is not a good sign, because it says that our world has not evolved to a point of tolerance. I also believe that it's important that certain things are not decadent and smeared in the faces of the public, garnering a negative effect or drawing something of this nature. But that wasn't the case. These people that were in the nightclub were having a good time. They were in an enclosed environment, and it was something that was ongoing. And there should be a place where people can go and feel free to express whatever it is that is in their spirit, so that they don't come under ridicule, and they're not judged, and they're not ostracized and castigated for it. This is an appropriate platform for people to go where they can feel safe, to just have a good time and live their life according to how they feel they'd like to live it. And this is what our country is supposed to be about. We're supposed to be able to accept different creeds, different nationalities, different philosophies and religions and spiritual beliefs without the inception of going back and forth and hurting one another and bullying each other. This is not something that we can continue to do as a civilization. So when we look at what has happened in Orlando, Florida, it was a predominantly Latino community that these young people have succumbed to the violence of one person in particular. I want to talk about why something like this happens, why it continues to happen. Let's look at the shooter. I believe his name is Omar Mateen. I don't really want to conjure up and vindicate him by saying his name, but we just want to be specific about who indeed it was. So, this individual is someone who has frequented the nightclub. Okay, let's get the facts out. He was seen at the nightclub many times. He was married, and he was at the nightclub to a point where he emboldened himself to perpetuate this mass murdering. So what that tells me is that he is someone that was majorly conflicted with his own identity, so much to the extent that he wanted to annihilate anyone who was a reminder of the pain that he had to live with. So now we have to go a little further into the acceptance of who he was. He obviously was not someone who accepted his own homosexuality, and he had to be homosexual, or else, if he was fully straight, he would not have been frequenting that club. A lot of people have this as a lifestyle, and it is something of a self-deceptive living of a lie that they are allowing themselves to be ensconced in. When someone is gay and they have a beard, so to speak, and they go out on dates with women and they marry women, but they are behind closed doors having sexual relations with other men and vice versa, this is something that needs to be dealt with. This causes a lot of confusion in society. It also is drastically irresponsible when a man who is gay or bisexual goes and lies with a woman, potentially opening her up to a disease or having her heart broken because he was not forthright about what his preference and what his dealings are with men. This needs to stop. And the hatred that is associated with non-acceptance of one's sexuality is what causes something like this to happen. So we're living in a world that is very, very, we live in a world that is very, very contradictory. If you go to London, you have a Commonwealth bureaucracy that are telling London farmers how much they can charge for their crops and for what their hard works are. That's not fair. They can tell them how much to charge for a gallon of milk, but they are the ones that have worked so hard to produce this harvest, and they have every right to put the price tag that they feel is warranted on it. It shouldn't be for a group in Brussels, Belgium, to tell people in another country what to do. We also have that same paradox here in America, where you have people who are allowed to obtain firearms and they're known to be suspicious. They might be on a no-fly list. They might be known as a possible terrorist suspect. But yet and still, our gun laws are not stringent enough to keep away that type of potential avarice that will be perpetuated when the wrong person gets the firearm. So we need to take a closer look at why this also happens. And in my opinion, America and the world, by and large, has a love affair with violence. So much to the extent that when we are children, we're given plastic guns to play with. There's nothing wrong with admiring the military complex, admiring officers who are... My father was in the military for 29 years, and he was a command sergeant major. But I never had a desire to play with guns because my father was in the military. My father was also a Green Beret and a medic. He was someone that had full knowledge of how to disassemble guns and how to use them, how to clean them, and unfortunately, in the proper situation, how to use them if necessary, because he was a military man. But unfortunately, that spills over to the point where we have video games on our world that teach our youngest youth how to become desensitized when they act out having guns. Like Grand Theft Auto is probably the #1 example that I can use to show how violence is accepted in our society. And what it does is it over time erodes the sense of morality that is associated with life, with respecting life. And these children have played these violent games. It's not just Grand Theft Auto, but it's many of the other games that basically take away the sensibility and the respect for life. So much to the extent that one day, if that child who has played the violent video game for 6 or 7 years ever comes across a gun, he's going to feel that one day the opportunity is going to present itself where he's going to have to use that gun or that knife or that baseball bat or whatever the instrument is that would basically be a threat to life. So we have to change the way that we teach our children. We have to change the nature of what we expose them to. Violence is something that is celebrated through movies. It's fantasized about by people who are bullied in school, and a large majority of those people who are bullied go into the police academy and they become cops, and they perpetuate the same bullyism, the same mindset, and the same undue, unnecessary, overt violence that was perpetuated on them when they were in grade school. So we have to look at the cadets that are coming in, and I think there also needs to be a call to action to really, really scan and look at the dossier of the incoming cadets to see if they have the proper mind state and the proper judgment to be a police officer without acting out their own deep and setting desires to right the wrongs that have been done to them. So when we have a situation such as the Orlando shooting, our country of America, it's a great country. It has lots of resources. It has wonderful services. It is a beautiful place, but there are very, very fundamental things that are wrong with the society, because what it produces through the guise of entertainment are monsters. And Trayvon Martin was killed by someone who was allowed to have a gun because he himself was a bully. And he's still not in jail. He is someone that is still walking around the streets, and he had access to a gun. These things will continue to happen because there is a level of self-hatred, non-acceptance, love affair with violence. Those are three things alone that constantly contribute to the moral decay and the potential for such a mass murder where 49 people can be destroyed and killed. Now, the spiritual implication of that is based on how these people died, there are going to be, more likely than not, half of them that will turn into ghosts, that will continue to stay on this earthly plane, waiting, wanting, and stalking for revenge. Many people will have to deal with the repercussion of that. This planet needs to be cleansed spiritually, and people need to work to accept who they are. There are many different reasons why someone is gay. Some people are born that way, and some people are forced to be that way because it becomes a level of comfort for them, because they've gone through something that was shockingly heinous when they were transgressed upon, whether they were in jail or it was a family member or it was a rape. These things happen all the time here in America. So there are many implications and reasons as to why someone turns out that way. But the bottom line is we need to be more accepting of it, and no one has the right to administer violence, because violence is the lowest form of expression that there is. And when you look at people who are masters and people who are respectable, they don't deal with violence. They don't fantasize about exerting unnecessary force where it is not warranted, welcomed, or respected. So we have more of a responsibility to be mindful of our actions and never allow yourself to even fantasize about being violent and dealing a violent hand, because you will have the repercussions that are associated with that. So I hope that this video helps to shine a different light on the situation. There is a deeper meaning as to why these things happen. And I would say this to all the people who may be inflicted with their own sexuality or their own past of being bullied. Always take the high road. Never plummet into the chasm of despair and revenge and get back, because that will certainly lead you to damnation, and the ripples that affect the catastrophic comeback to you are guaranteed. I am SRI Gano Grills for Galighticus.com, and I will see you on the next episode. Namaste.
Oh yeah. Hello world. Peace and love. I wish you the best.